Welcome to the Occult Rejects. We are two former secret society members who were determined to show the public the truth that occultism has been purposely integrated into every aspect of society, from politics to music, Hollywood, and science. This is used to manipulate the public as a whole and to protect the fake elite. The symbols are used all around us to affect world events and public perception, our behavior, and even our future. We will translate the occult so that you have eyes to see. We reject their agenda to give you the tools to save yourself. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Occult Rejects with your host Lux
and NY Patriot.
And we just wanted to say welcome back to all of our subscribers. Thank everybody for everything that, all the comments, all the emails. It's really awesome to have some positive feedback, and we just, of course, want to say thank you to every single one of you who tune in and listen. You guys are the reason that we're here. And today we're going to be covering more of what we touched on last week in the first episode for what is called the Gateway Experience. And so just to give a brief summary of sort of where we are up to this point, we touched on slightly MK Ultra, which was a government project that delved into mind control that was funded by the CIA. They had 142 sub-projects, and so they were really trying to sort of figure out the human mind. And around that same time there's a doctor's name was Robert Monroe, and he was doing sort of these experiments with different tones, different frequencies, and he thought that he was really onto something big, and he actually was, I think that you said, New York Patriot, that he was owner of a broadcast station, right?
Yeah, a lot of them. He was actually well known for that.
Which he had a lot of
question. It's like somebody who's into like making weird things happen to people just on sounds. It's kind of like and that dude's involved in broadcasting. You're like, what the fuck's up with that?
Right? Yeah, yeah. I had really similar thoughts, and exactly the same time that the CIA is doing MK Ultra experiments. Now, in the MK Ultra experiments, they were subjecting people to long-term tones. So they would put people to sleep for 3-4 days, subject them to certain tones. But what they would also do is they would subject them to repetitious phrases, and they called this mental driving. So for, let's say, 4 days straight, you would listen to a tape while you were asleep and usually really drugged out. And on this tape that was plugged into your ears, it would say something like, one example specifically is one of the participants was told, "You killed your mother.
Oh,
you killed your mother. You killed your mother." And he listened to this for days and days on end. The longest time that they kept someone asleep doing the mental driving, I believe, was 72 days.
That's fucking insane.
Right. So this 72. Now, the doctors that were behind the MK Ultra experiments, the doctors believed that if you could mentally drive someone for so long that you could literally change thought patterns, that you could change the way that someone behaved. And so that was some of the experiments that they were doing in MK Ultra. And then right alongside of it, in no way talking negatively about Robert Monroe. I just do think that it's suspicious. At the same time, Monroe begins to develop the Gateway Experience, which it uses very similar techniques. And I've always hypothesized, I guess, wondered maybe if the Gateway Experience as we know it, if it came out of the MK Ultra experiments, because you're being subjected to repetitious phrases and to various tones. And Monroe believed that
it sounds like old school techno music, actually.
Yeah.
The same sample over and over and again with the bass beat and a couple of tones.
Do it. So So yeah, Monroe is developing this technique where you are basically self-hypnotizing yourself, and that you can do this to change certain thought patterns or to change certain behavior. And he also believed that you could astrally project out of the body once you had really sort of mastered this technique that he called hemisync, which was bringing both the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain in harmony, or hemisync, two hemispheres of the brain syncing together to create sort of like the unified mind. And he believed that once this has happened, that you could astrally project, that you could really start to do some interesting stuff. And at this point, I would definitely say that the MK Ultra experiments and the Gateway process, the Gateway Experience by Monroe, are two different things, but it is interesting they were around at the exact same time. And because of the experiments that Monroe was doing, the CIA got wind of it, and they decided to do an analysis of the Gateway Experience, in which they had people delve into the papers and the recordings and the process of Gateway in order to see if it was real and if it was valid. And that document became declassified, I believe, in 2003. So it is literally the CIA investigating astral projection, remote viewing, able to leave your body and see different times, places through time and space. And for them, that was a really, really valuable tool. So they wanted to see if it was real. And that's sort of, we left off last week with we got through some of the document that I was just talking about, the CIA analysis. So now we're going to continue with sort of part 2.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I did want to just go over real quick, that it was it was originally on tapes that you would, you could do this on your own and at home. And I don't think we really went into that in the first one, that it's just basically guided meditations or tapes with different tones. And it is supposed to basically sync up, like Lux said, sync up, both sides of the brain. And basically, from what I got of going through the manual, the way that it works through these tones and stuff is that you're supposed to be able to lower the, it's almost like lowering the volume of your heart rate, of how loud it's pumping, and then even lowering the vibrational rate of your brain down to the vibrational rate of the earth. And then once you do that, it's basically that's when all the magic tends to happen.
Right.
So, I mean, that was just something I don't think we touched upon in the first one. I would like to at least give, what's the theory behind of how this works. That's basically what I got out of reading it and listening to the first 2 tapes.
Yeah, he really started out with the sleep learning stuff. Is kind of how he got started, right? Which was, being exposed to, tones and phrases or different, like vibration, via tone.
Yeah.
As
he uses a lot of binaural, how do you say that again?
Binaural.
Yeah, it uses a lot of those in it too, because it says that the difference between the left and the right side, like if one was 50 hertz and the other one was 100, then it would actually, your brain will produce the 75, an actual rate that wasn't, and then that's that helps make a connection between both sides of the brain too.
Right. Yeah, and he believed that those certain tones would essentially shut down the left side of the brain and allow more information to go directly into the right side of the brain, because the left side of the brain is what filters all information that goes to the subconscious. So, he started doing, the sleep learning stuff. He wrote a book in 71, which was Journey Out of the Body. So while doing his experiments, while doing, the sleep learning and Monroe method, he actually had an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, I think they claim that he might be the one who coined that phrase.
Yeah.
OBE.
Yeah, and then shortly after, he started his own institute just for that study, for out-of-body experience, for remote viewing, for sleep learning. He believed there were a lot of benefits to it, so he started his own institute, and it still exists today. You can actually go to Virginia and take some of the Gateway Experience classes if you want.
Yep.
But
it looks like a rather nice, professional, fancy website too.
It does.
Yeah.
New York Patriot and I have a vacation plan for
it's a fucking $5,000 for the first week.
Yeah.
Nothing included.
Yeah. Bring your own food.
Yeah.
BYOB. And it definitely works. Just one thing to point out real quick. I did that reference where, one of the MK Ultra participants was told that he killed his mother. When he was released from the program, he went home and saw his mother, and he had believed that she was dead. I mean, that's how effective, the sleep learning or the mental driving can be. Because you're entering information right into the subconscious, into the right-hand side of the brain. It took him forever to realize that his mother was not actually dead. And I'm not talking about a day. I'm talking about months of intensive psychiatric treatment.
Yeah, it could take longer sometimes to undo something like that than it did to make you believe it.
Right.
For sure.
So it's effective. And, of course, the United States government, if they can use that for something more effective in their terms, then, of course, they're going to use it, I mean, think about the benefit of being able to convince someone of something, or to sync the brain, or to astrally travel or get out of the body. All of those things were really interesting to them, and they went on to use a lot of the methods that Gateway deploys. And this is sort of where we get into the really weird stuff.
Yeah.
This is where we get into the real kit and caboodle here, because they released this document in 2003 of their analysis of Gateway, and they had to prove that it was either totally false or that it was real. And this went all the way up to the commander of the U.S. Army Operational Group at Fort Meade. So this was not a small project, and it was the analysis of the Gateway experience, or the Monroe Institute experience. Was a guy named Wayne M. McDonald, and he was the commander there. And he writes a very lengthy analysis of the experience and what they found out during the study. And we talked a little bit last week about how they were able to scientifically prove that the Gateway experience itself, the method that they use, the tones, can actually slow down, your brain and your heart to exactly like what New York Patriot was saying, that they can do it whenever they want just by using this certain tone, this certain method. And so they were able to figure out sort of where they could go with this next, because they knew that they could sync the brain, which would eventually lead to the astral travel and lead to remote viewing and things like that. So they were able to scientifically prove that it works with the brain and the heart, and they go into a very detailed analysis of how that works, and literally opens up a different ventricle in the heart and the brain, and it sends blood into a different pattern and into a different vibratory state.
Oh, yeah. They really explain it very scientific.
Yeah, the vibration actually changes at a measurable rate. And the next part of the analysis is where they describe how and why it works. And the first thing so this is not me saying this. This is the CIA. They are saying in this document that the reason why Gateway works is because energy, consciousness, and the universe are way different than what the public is told.
Yeah. It basically says that.
And
It comes out and says that matter isn't even solid, technically.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good place that we can pick up. They definitely say on page 7, bullet point 11, they describe how the fluid and the field vibration of a molecule composed of a number of atoms bound together in a singular energy field vibrates at the range of 10 to the 9 hertz. A human cell is also vibrating at 10 to the 3rd hertz. And so, they give a very detailed explanation of atoms, molecules, electrons, and essentially that they are all vibration and that it's not an actual solid. And then the next thing that they go into, which is bullet point 12, I think is fascinating. And this might be some of the most occulted information that I've ever seen.
Oh, you know what I wanted to bring up real quick? Because it was right. I was looking at the same thing you were, and I had a sentence highlighted prior to what you were just talking about. Something I did want to bring up that it says, in addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication activity with other human minds similarly tuned. So, it's even saying that you can, I guess, contact other people too through this that are doing the same thing or on the same wavelength, I guess, as you're vibrating at.
Yeah, and
I found that to be very interesting that they even say that.
Yeah, I know. They really kind of spill the beans on a lot of stuff in here. And, I would encourage every one of our listeners, we'll put the link in the description to this analysis. You'll have to get the CIA website, simple download. And you guys got to read this. Yeah. This is a scientific explanation of how the occult works and why it works, because the occult systems that have been used by magicians, for generations, those methods you see here in this document. And
I have a bunch written down that I was going to go over. Yeah, the same exact practices that you would do if you were a ceremonial magician or into ritual magic. I mean, these are just basic things that anybody would tell you to do. It's pretty. Like, holy shit! Like, this is stuff that I practice doing. Same thing.
Right, and ritual magic, ceremonial magic relies so much on color, vibration, and symbolism. And, during ritual magic, you're performing certain actions with your hands, but you're also manipulating your voice to create a certain tone. And when I was in the Golden Dawn, I was told that the tone is more important than the movement. So getting the tone is what's most important. And it's funny because when I listen to some of the Hemisync tapes, the same tone that I was producing during certain rituals is the same tone. Do you notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that, actually.
It's the same tone that we hear on Gateway tapes.
Well, you know what? I would also well, that's right. You listened to the first one, right? And it's on there too. The second one goes into it a little bit more. I've only listened to the second tape. That, when it's having you breathe out the negative air or the used air, you're supposed to be. That's just almost like the same thing as when you're supposed to be, when you're doing ceremonial magic, specific rituals, you're supposed to charge the 4 directions, and you would vibrate, a specific god name or a word. It was almost the same exact thing. It's just making you vibrate a sound.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like this document right here is legitimizing magic. This is giving an actual scientific explanation for why magic works. Especially during that breathing exercise that you do, and I think it's the first or second Gateway Experience tape, is like New York Patriot was saying, you're told to breathe in fresh, new energy, and then to bring all of that energy up into your head, and then to release old and stale energy, is what the tape says.
Yeah, and then you're supposed to start to hum along with it also. But even that one thing right there that you were saying, huge. People do that all the time in magic as a basic exercise.
Right, and in this document, we also learned that color is, it's based on its vibratory wavelength. So, pink and green and blue literally represent an actual frequency. It's not just, it's in the occult. Well, pink is related to the feminine because the feminine is, related. There is that occult explanation, but there is also a very scientific explanation for why it works because it's an actual vibratory tone.
Yeah, even that was like one of the things I had down with like you were saying with like colors too. Like even in here it tells you to be able to picture certain colors. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of basic practices that I did when I first got into this stuff. That was like picture a red triangle and hold it as long as you can. There was one where it's like I was supposed to have my body split up into 3, and down the left side would be a specific color. Then up the middle would be like white, and then the right side would be red. And it's like you're supposed to picture each of those things going up. That was all like, those are all very well-known practices to do. I mean, Liber E, written by Crowley, is all on focusing on breathing, focusing on posture, which is being able to hold it for a while, which, in my opinion, the second tape starts going into all of that already. Mm-hmm. And holding images in your head. All those things are in Liber E, and it's the same exact things that they're doing in this. The same exact type of stuff that any ceremonial magician would be doing in the beginning of their travels with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram.
Yeah.
You're creating a pentagram with your hand, and you're drawing it in blue fire, right? And then you're connecting each one of those pentagrams with a white or blazing white light. You're told to, as you call on the archangels, that you're supposed to mentally envision them in certain colors, right? And they stand at the 4 corners. And another one that really rang a bell to me was, body of light. I mean, the breathing exercise in the Gateway tapes is the same breathing that you do in the body of light ritual.
Yep. You breathe in white and you blow out like gray smoke. Yep.
Yeah. You're getting rid of all the old, stale energy. You're grounding your feet. It's the same thing that you do in Gateway. You're grounding your feet. You're putting the body almost to sleep too. So
yep. Yeah. In the second tape, it actually goes over practically your whole face, except for the top of your head, and the whole rest of your body. You were supposed to actually picture yourself putting to sleep and bringing all the energy into your brain. And I was like, this is exactly how, like, in the Astrum Argentum, Crowley's secret society, to eventually get to a certain degree, you will be tested to have to, in a position of your choice, sit that way or stay that way for an hour. Yep. Some people are like, how the fuck do you do that? That's insane. It does sound like it, but at some point, the way for you to pull that off is that you almost have to actually believe that your body's not there, so you don't even think of wanting to move your pinky. Right. As crazy as that sounds, but that's basically how you pull something like that off. That's exactly what the second tape was already going into, to where when I listened to it, you could almost feel like, I'm laying down, that it's just like literally just your head on the bed. Like if you can get really good at it. And that's exactly how you can hold that pose for an hour, is because you actually don't even feel like anything else is there.
And there would be times, even when I would do the Gateway Experience tape 1 and 2, where I didn't even know if I wanted to or could move my hand, and I didn't even care.
No, I thought it was cool as shit that I was like, wow, I really like hardly even feel anything there.
Yeah,
and I was like, damn. I was like, and this happens on the second tape. Now, I'm sure most people probably wouldn't get the same results, but because we actually realized what it was trying to do, kind of. But I was impressed just from the second tape. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
and it was all normal practices I was used to already.
Right, and what it feels like to me, if I'm being totally honest, is that the occult as a whole, it feels like for a very long time, it's like bits and pieces and bits and pieces and bits and pieces, and one group has some info, another group has some other info that's maybe not even the same, and so you're more or less like putting together, to me, it feels like you're trying to put together a bunch of stuff that was once lost, right? Like that this was a very well understood science at one time, but was fragmented. And people as a whole, maybe it's society or culture, that we lost that information for whatever reason. Maybe, anything from, changing poles, because of, magnetism, electromagnetism with the sun, which maybe desynced our brains or something. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But
So many different things.
But it definitely feels like in the occult, when you're studying magic, that it's a lost art. It's a lost science, right?
Yes.
But then when you read this document and the analysis of Gateway, it's almost like they studied it and they researched all of these different types of magic and then consolidated them and then like put a turbocharger on them.
It's funny you're talking about that, and one of the pictures I had up that I did want to go into was when they draw the absolute infinity. It's that wavelength, and basically it's like showing you how they're trying to explain. Well, there's two things I can actually get on here. It says when you get to negative or 10 to the negative 33 centimeters in this vibrating, oscillating thing. I found that to be interesting that when you hit negative 33, like the the 33 degrees in Freemasonry, that is when you actually start clicking out, in their opinion, of the time and space. And this is when you can really start doing some crazy stuff.
Right.
Just throw that in there. That was what I originally wanted to go into, but it was showing the wavelength. Now, in my opinion, a lot of what the sphere of Binah or Saturn, that idea in the Kabbalah or in ceremonial magic, some of the stuff I think it's really telling you about there seems like stuff that they should not have known about. Technically,
exactly.
Going by how long we supposedly have been studying the Kabbalah. Some people say hundreds, thousands of years. Now, in my opinion, the sign of Aquarius, the waves, is the same exact fucking thing that it's showing me here with this wave pattern. And it would almost be, even with electric, I think the lightning bolt and a lot has to do with stuff like that. In my opinion, Binah would be showing you when you're clicking in and out to be able to go in between both worlds, which would be that wave for Aquarius. And then if you think of electric, you have AC/DC, which is alternating current. So if you even want to use electric as a symbol for that, it's showing you going in between, being able to go in between both worlds. Now, if you have stuff like showing you like these waves, or you're actually associating electric types of ideas into something like this, you have to start to wonder. And if you believe it, and I think if I had enough time to go over it, I could, definitely make a case for it. You would have to wonder, how long has this science actually been known?
Right.
And is it just hidden from people? Because if we're talking about this stuff, people 2,000 years ago, if the Kabbalah is that old, how the fuck did they know about that?
Exactly, and that's what I mean. That's why what I say when I mean it feels fragmented. It feels like they were told this information or given this information, and they were like, "Oh shit, okay, well, let's use like a fish and water to symbolize it." So you could. It almost feels like they were struggling to understand a lot of it themselves.
Yeah,
and but at the same time, they had a pretty good understanding. I mean, if you look at a lot of the ancient Hebrew books. The Book of Formation specifically talks about how the Hebrews received their language and how they believed that each letter and each letter had a number correspondence to the letter, and that certain words said in a certain way were holy or special or different than others. And if you look at the construction of Solomon's temple, there's a lot of hinting there that he was using certain God words or vibratory things to lift blocks and accomplish these goals that he was that he was doing. So it does seem like the Hebrews had a very good idea at a rudimentary level that, something is up with vibration and tones and
sound,
the way, and the correlation to the human body. And again, how did they know that? It's got to be something that was older than them. At least that's what I would think.
That's exactly what I think.
And it's interesting too when you look at wavelengths, right? So if you look at, let's say, a sound wave. Now, the lower the sound wave, okay, let's say you're a very low tone, the wavelength is very long and drawn out. So imagine like an ocean wave that only peaks, it up and down very slowly, and a very long time in between the apex of the peak of that, vibration to the others. Now, if you take a high-pitched sound, a higher tone, then the wavelength is much shorter and much more condensed. So in other words, your ocean wave now is going up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, and the time that it's going up and down is very short and very close together. And in this document here, they're talking about, the absolute of infinity, and like New York Patriot was talking about, clicking out.
Yeah.
They have a very good explanation here as to why the tones work, and it's all related to color, and more importantly, I believe it's all related to dimensions and time space. I think that at least based on the research that I've been doing a lot of research on this, just one specific subject for a very long time, as far as like M theory, string theory, dimensional physics. Something I'm really fascinated in, and they did not like that I was researching a lot of this stuff in the Golden Dawn. But
I found it in here, going through their manuals. There was one where they do a lesson with thinking, it would be like picturing your astral body and turning certain, colors to do different things. Like purple would to be like heal yourself. Like, I guess, like if your leg was fucked up, and that's all stuff too that I've, it's how a lot of magicians or witches basically practice healing, is doing that. Specific colors on parts of their body or somebody else's.
Or certain tone, or certain gemstones.
Yes, yeah, yep.
Certain earth materials, like natural organic things, whether it be a branch or a leaf or something. It's always very specific in the color that you have to get, and there's a lot of power in that in the color. And I'm thinking, so if you look at the Kabbalah, right, and you look at the shape of the tree of life, and then if you take that and you superimpose that image on top of M theory or string theory, which is the way that science believes that dimensions are organized. If you take the Kabbalah and the outline for M theory and you superimpose them on each other, they're the exact same thing, even down to the shape. And I find that real fascinating. It's another thing that
when they're showing the torus, basically they're showing a black hole. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. If you were to actually position the tree on that, it's almost as if like that middle part would be like Tiferet.
Well, it's weird. The way that they organize the dimensions is that it's strange. It's not even as though they have a location in time and space. It's as though it's like a dimension within the time and space. So the lower the vibration, the lower the dimension, and then the higher the vibration, the higher the dimension.
Well, Kabbalah, the spheres on the Kabbalah are all like that too. There's four different levels on it and of density, basically.
Right, and then it seems like wherever, if the vibration is higher, then it's located closer to what they call the white hole, and we can get into that in a little bit little bit more. But yeah, they're to me, it seems like M theory and the Kabbalah are now, to me at least, the exact same thing that is explaining dimensions, and probably how we interact with dimensions based on our vibration. You know?
Yeah, no, I definitely have due like I told you before, due to like some of my past experiences and some of the knowledge of some other things like this, I had started wondering, certain things with the Kabbalah. I was just like, some of this almost seems like it's almost showing me this, but just in a different way.
Yep.
It's pretty weird.
It is pretty weird, and again, it makes me think how in the world that the ancient Hebrews knew that information that long ago. I mean, they symbolized it with a tree, something that would take, can you imagine how smart they would have had to have been to create something that would go on through generations with symbolism that people knew that they could then understand thousands of years later. Like, it's just wild to me. The Kabbalah itself is it's very mysterious, and it's weird how it was able to hold such power for so long, because I mean the people who drew it were able to really explain how the dimensions interact with each other, because you have paths all along the Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm. And those all have their own experiences. Well, yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Right, they do. So yeah, you have in one sphere, you have a certain attributes of that sphere. So maybe in that sphere, that's the dimensional reality.
Oh yeah, I've tossed around ideas like that myself, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, hey, in life you do good stuff. Well, you're going to go to a higher vibration because, you are doing positive things when that isn't drawing you to a lower dimension, because the feelings like anger and hate are of a lower vibratory resonance. So just interesting.
Mm. Oh, I had some other things that I wrote down too that I thought was interesting. Was the going back to occult stuff. The energy conversion box, I kind of took that as at some point it's telling you to put all your worries into this box that you have to create in your mind, and then close
at the beginning of the gateway.
Yeah. And I thought that was almost kind of in a way a cheesy way of doing your banishing ritual. You're like, all right, all these things that I could possibly be thinking about that would kind of influence me right now, I'm pushing that away, putting it somewhere else.
I picked up the same thing. I was like, to me, this seems like a banishing ritual.
Yeah.
You're putting all your worries and cares into a box. You're leaving them there. You do your ritual. You're leaving all your cares and your worries in the circle, and
And then the other thing that I thought definitely struck out to me was in this thing they have. It's called I think Reball, whatever. It's a resonant energy balloon.
Mm-hmm.
It's protection against negative and undesirable energies that basically you're almost putting a shield around yourself, because it says I think in the manual, and I think it's even said inside the CIA thing, that you can come across undesirable things that you may not want to be associated with. So it's even saying that there's entities out there. But the funny thing I thought about that, though, is that whole resonant energy balloon. I thought of two different things. Neither one, they always tell you, oh, you're supposed to know your holy guardian angel first before you cross the abyss, because you have it as protection. Or that's, again, just maybe even more of just banishing. Because when you're banishing ceremonial, if you're actually doing a legit thing, you're almost kind of putting a dome, a protective dome over yourself. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, when you're doing your banishing ritual, you're creating a protective circle that follows you the entire day.
Yep.
And
it tells you that you need to construct that before you kind of really cross over and go out there. It's a suggested thing to do. I just found that to be very much ceremonial stuff. Yeah,
and it's it's the first ritual that you would do before you perform any magic, right?
Yeah.
Banishing ritual.
Yeah. I think they say that is the It's basically your platform. Everything should be done like that. I mean, I think Crowley even pushed that a lot, saying that your first and only thing to do should be banishing or something like that.
Yeah,
You need to have a
when I
clean
read
slate.
that, right, and when I read that in the CIA document, I about dropped it. Okay, because like you said, it says, okay, well, yeah, the Gateway Experience works. This is how you do it. Oh, and by the way, before you really get into like the astral travel and the remote viewing, you're going to need to do this energy conversion balloon because you've got to protect yourself against lower resonating entities.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it said it too. Entities, for sure. I know it said that.
Yeah, in the CIA document, and I was like, what? And they talk about that these entities are of a lower vibrational level.
That's going to wrap up part 2 to the Gateway Experience. We will finish the Gateway Experience in part 3. That should hopefully be released within a week or two after this one. And again, if you like our stuff, you get anything out of it, please like, subscribe, hit that bell, hit that notification, share it, pass it on. Also, you can check us out on Gab TV, and we do have our own Gab group as well. So yeah, that's about it. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all got something out of it. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And until the next one, everyone be well. Later.